Aloha! I am on a hike today. It's actually really cloudy. And I think it could rain on me. It may. It certainly loves to do that every time I bring you on a hike with me. I think I might get lucky. It seems a little grumpy outside, but I'm not giving you the view. This is the view of the clouds. I know behind me it looks kind of bright and blue. That's the direction of the ocean. So anyways, I'm on a ranch. There's cows out here. There's wild sheep and goat out here. Okay, so let's talk about the eclipse. This eclipse happening on September 7th in Pisces means that it's a full moon. It's a total lunar eclipse. This particular eclipse in Pisces is on the North Node. A North Node is a point in astrology. It's not an actual body or planet or asteroid. It's a point in astrology. And the North Node is always opposite of the South Node. It's a point in astrology that shows us the direction that we need to go in for overall rebalance and growth on a soul level. And the South Node is a point in astrology that is about our past, our karma, our wisdom, where we have a lot of experience and where we're drawing on gifts to use in the world in a higher way, but also where we're releasing and moving away from certain patterns or behaviors. Both of these nodes, the South Node and the North Node, you can think of them as points that can activate not just our karmic patterns, but they are linked to our fate and they are linked to our destiny. If you want to think about fate as events that we put in place, relationships, events, circumstances that we put in place before we even came into this lifetime, we have to have particular experiences for our growth and overall rebalance. We have to meet this person, we have to begin this job, we have to move to this location, we have to go through this certain experience. We have to, right? It's a little bit like out of our control. It's something we've put in place before we even came into the body. That's how you can think of fate. Okay, it's there to direct us and align us with the path that's going to help us grow and rebalance overall on a soul level. So that's what makes an eclipse. An eclipse is that these new moons and full moons are falling on one of these points, the North Node or the South Node. And so this upcoming total lunar eclipse in Pisces is on the North Node, which means that it's going to be illuminating and making it very obvious to us the direction we must go in, the qualities, the energies, the behaviors, the themes of Pisces, the direction we must all go in to grow and rebalance, and the themes of Pisces that bring up fated events for all of us, as well as destiny. Now, I didn't talk about destiny. Destiny you could think of as a little bit different than fate. Destiny is more of a potential. Destiny, you can think of it as a potential. It's not set in stone, it's something that can be activated. It's something that's activated when you are aligned with yourself. You're aligned and connected with yourself. It's activated when you have opened up your gifts and when you are developing those gifts and when you are bringing those gifts out into the world in a new way, almost in a way that might be unimaginable in ways that you've used them before, and it opens you up to new potentials of your soul experience. Now that is more like destiny. And so these eclipses can be a potent time. Eclipses can bring up endings. They can bring up permanent endings. Something can get eclipsed out of our lives. Something can get revealed to us in these eclipses. Something that was hidden now becomes seen. Something is illuminated, right? And these eclipses are more potent. You can think of them as full moons that are 3 times as more powerful. So that means that they can be energetically activating. You know, you might be having days surrounding these eclipses or within the weeks of these eclipses, feeling energetic shifts happening inside of you. You could be feeling lots of detoxing. You could be having shifts in consciousness. You could be more emotional around these times, especially with this full moon in Pisces. Pisces is a water sign. It's more intuitive and it's very sensitive. And it's very spiritual and creative as well. And so it wouldn't surprise me if at some point, you know, within this eclipse season, we're crying. You know, maybe a cathartic release, maybe a healing release. Maybe it's the type of crying you do when you get that feeling of like, oh, I've been worried about all these details, but it's all coming together. It's making sense. I can trust in the mysteriousness of my divine flow. So back to this lunar eclipse in Pisces. A lunar eclipse, a full moon, okay, a total lunar eclipse is one of the more powerful eclipses. The most powerful eclipse that you can have is actually a total solar eclipse. That means it's going to be a total new moon eclipse, right? But that's not what this is. This is a total lunar eclipse. That means it's very powerful. It's like a step down in its strength from a total solar eclipse. All right, either way, this is one of the strong ones. It's in Pisces. Every year we have 2 sets of eclipses, twice a year. There's twice a year where we go through changes and pivots and readjustments in our lives, realignments in our lives. And these are times when we are having soul experiences. If you're one of those people that is naturally soulful, you tend to be intuitive and follow that intuition. You tend to have a spiritual practice and you feel connected. You tend to really align with yourself. You do the work. You're constantly regaining your balance and healing deeply and doing the work on some level. Then these eclipses, they can be like multi-dimensional timeline shifts. They can be like coming into new potentials in your life. It can be that level of coming into your destiny. It's actually a really exciting time. These eclipses are happening in mutable signs. Pisces and Virgo are mutable signs, which means that they are naturally adaptable and really good at transition. I want to talk now about Pisces because this total lunar eclipse is happening in Pisces. Pisces is a water sign. That makes it emotional, it makes it intuitive, and it makes it feminine. It's a spiritual sign. You could think about Pisces as this beautiful archetype of the mystic. It's going to bring out the themes of our inner mystic. And it's also a very creative sign. It's an imaginative sign. It's got a brilliant imagination, a brilliant way of dreaming and visioning and bringing our dreams into existence, imagining things, creating, being of the spiritual world. Pisces can really be skilled at being aware of what's happening in the collective on an intuitive level. The thing I want to mention about Pisces and its mystical nature is that Pisces knows how to go with the flow. Okay, they know how to exist without any structure. They trust the unknown. They surrender to a higher power or a higher intelligence. And they know how to be adaptable in any given moment. They're usually very much in the moment, which makes them a little bit haphazard when it comes to preparing for things. They're more just kind of floating around in the present moment, but that is a type of intelligence. It's that intelligence of allowing. It's that intelligence of surrender. It's that intelligence of trust in the unknown, knowing that even if I don't have any of the details figured out, even if none of this makes sense, I trust that it's in my greatest benefit. I trust that it's working out for me. I trust that it's coming together for me. I trust that it's appropriate for my soul and my soul experience, my experience as a human with my soul. Like, that's more Pisces. It's going to be at the 15th degree. Now, one thing that I think is very interesting is the new moon in Virgo that happened in August, that opened us up into eclipse season. That was at a critical degree. It was at 0 degrees. Okay. This total lunar eclipse in Pisces is at 15 degrees, which is another critical degree. And then the next partial solar eclipse in Virgo is also going to be at a critical degree, at the 29th degree. Okay, so this is giving off, in my opinion, strong karmic completions, strong fated events, things that we must begin, things that we must complete, things that we must do, things that we must learn, certain experiences we must have, in order to progress forward on our journey. The 15th degree is a critical degree, and it's talking about these traits about Pisces that one must really harness or develop or embody. It's kind of like a frustrating energy, because it's like you really have to get this lesson, you really have to get this down, you really have to understand this theme, you really have to get this energy, okay, before you move forward. You can think of it like as just a big hump you got to get over to move forward with this energy. And so some of these themes that Pisces has to deal with, they're naturally compassionate. This Pisces energy is naturally really compassionate and empathetic and emotionally sensitive. Oh, but that can fall into being really self-sacrificing and being like a martyr, and having porous boundaries. Generally speaking, these are positive qualities about Pisces, compassion and sensitivity and empathy. But if you get into a relationship, let's, for example, say like with a narcissist, then this energy can be incredibly taken advantage of and abused, right? And we've seen that theme becoming a huge theme on planet Earth, right? So that's an example of what I'm talking about. Pisces is also a dreamer. It's aware of more of the broad experience. We can feel into our spiritual nature and our creative nature, and it's open and it's broad and it's big. Oh, but Pisces can have these big dreams, but they can really struggle when it comes to getting the details down in a very practical way to make their dreams actually embodied, right? And so that's why Virgo is the opposite of Pisces, because Virgo is an energy that really helps you embody new habits, new routines, bring order to things, embody skills and growth and healing and wellness, and and improves things, right? And so it really balances out Pisces. And so Pisces must learn not just to dream really, really big and be aware of like the forest, but also be aware of the trees and the details and the practical things, the grounded things you must do in order to embody those dreams, right? So that reminds me of kind of like one of those things that Pisces must get, to really master the energy of that sign, of that archetype. And so we have a full moon in the 15th degree. So this full moon could be, it doesn't have to be irritating, but sometimes that 15th degree can feel intense in that it is a little irritating or irritated because it's having to get this. You know, it's got to get through this hump. You know, it's kind of like when you're going up a hill, you can't take your foot off the brake. You can't take your foot off the gas, right? You actually have to put more gas on the pedal to go up the hill with your car and get over the hill. You have to put in more gas. You might sense some kind of intensity, and it's not like a bad intensity. It's just kind of like, okay, we gotta really move through this, you know, kind of intensity. One thing I think is pretty cool about this full moon in Pisces is that it's creating this kite formation in the sky. And what that means is that on the astrology wheel, it literally creates those lines, those aspects that look like a kite. And essentially, there are a few things that make up a kite in astrology. And one of those things is a grand trine. Now, a grand trine, like trines, for example, are very positive, very flowy, easeful, supportive energies. So when you have a grand trine, it's like this beautiful flow of energy that's highly supportive, and it's kind of like, you know, this sense of ease, almost that we could take it for granted because it just feels so easy, right? So we have a grand trine, and the grand trine connects to the moon in Pisces, the north node in Pisces, Jupiter in Cancer, and Lilith in Scorpio. So this is a water trine, which means that there is a flow of energy in the water signs, right? There's a beneficial, positive, supportive flow of energy in the water signs. That means our intuition is flowing. It means that that mystical side of us in Pisces is flowing with that energy of Cancer, the great mother, the learning and the experiences and the wisdom of family and home and emotional security, and how we can come together and create a safe, protected, connected, heart-connected space, right? And that's flowing with Lilith, the wild feminine, the dark goddess that can liberate us from being a good girl, from being a people pleaser, from being suppressed. And so we have the wild feminine flowing with the great mother, flowing with the mystic and the creative. And that's happening at this full moon. And then the other part of the kite configuration is more of a smaller triangle. They call it a talent triangle. So this talent triangle is being formed with the Sun, South Node, and Mercury in Virgo, with Lilith in Scorpio, and with Jupiter in Cancer. This is called a talent triangle because it can bring out our gifts. Again, it brings out our gifts, but with that kind of dynamic, again, it can all feel like opportunity. It can feel like our gifts. It can feel like energy flowing, like it's so easy, to the point where we could grow complacent, where we don't harness that energy. And so what a kite does is that it creates tension, because within a kite, there's also an opposition. And in this case, the opposition is between Pisces and Virgo, and it's between, you know, the moon and the north node and the south node and the sun and Mercury and Virgo. And this type of tension, you could say, is like a balancing act, okay? And this is the type of tension that doesn't allow us to grow complacent. It creates enough tension to have us harness the opportunities, have us harness the gifts, have us harness the flow of energy, and in this case with the full moon, to bring it to culmination, to bring it to fruition, to bring it to illumination, for it to be seen, for us to see it, for us to have, honestly, with this full moon, a spiritual experience, a soul experience. To have an experience with our soul where on a mental level, Mercury in Virgo, Sun in Virgo, South Node in Virgo, on a mental level, we can register and translate this soul experience in a way that helps us embody our dreams, embody our spiritual nature, embody something that that helps us heal and purify, and overall bring us to elevated states of our fate or destiny or health and wellness. This is a balancing act between that energy of Virgo, which is purifying, which is aware of so many details, which can be perfectionistic because it does have in its nature to improve things, and so sometimes it can go a little too far and be perfectionistic. It has tendencies to be perfectionistic because that energy is meant to improve. And because it's meant to improve, it can also be critical because it's meant to comb through so many details and edit things out and clear things out and purify things as needed so that something can be improved, so that the process can be improved, so that the healing process can be improved, so that our sacred service to others can be improved. You think about a doctor or a nurse in a hospital. They cannot mess up the details. If they mess up the details, they could overdose someone, they could give someone the wrong medication, they could, in surgery, screw up a surgery, you know, it could lead to someone's illness or disease or death or demise, you know. And so Virgos, you know, the medical professions tend to be associated with Virgo because they need that precision and they need that attention to details and they need it to be perfect, right? Otherwise, you're probably not going to be a good doctor. It's also linked to like naturopaths and healers because, you know, healing is like a process. It's a journey and it can be unique to each of us. And, you know, we start somewhere and then we look at what's working, what's not working, and how do we adjust something and change something and adapt something as we go so that we improve our health and improve our well-being and heal and grow in some way. So that Virgo energy can be incredible at bringing things to order, being aware of the details, creating routines, embodying new habits, making our daily lives sacred, and being of service to others. You know, we have to balance that out with the part of us that is just lofty and in dream world and aware of our soul experience and, you know, our dreams and even our fantasies and making it real through that embodiment. Okay, and so the tension that arises around this full moon or this lunar eclipse, this total lunar eclipse, is there for us to harness opportunity. It's there for us to harness opportunity, harness our gifts, come into awareness of our soul's destiny and embody our spiritual essence and embody it and improve it for real in our world. And that requires both those energies, both Virgo and both, you know, Pisces. And with the moon in Pisces, you know, this is more about our emotional world, our subjective reality, our subconscious, our patterns, our habits, you know, our nurturing and feminine energy, right? And Virgo, having the sun being in Virgo, this can bring up themes around our life purpose. You know, the sun can represent our focused consciousness in the world, what we're focusing on right now, why we're focusing on that right now, you know, on a soul level. Why are we focused on this in our lives? Well, maybe there's a greater meaning to it because Pisces is going to illuminate that for us. Pisces is traditionally ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is going to be in this grand trine. It's going to be trining Lilith and the moon, but it's also going to be in a square with Mars in Libra, the 20th degree. Now, Mars in Libra is at its detriment, which just means it has to work harder to move through challenges. Libra is a very socially elevated sign. It's intellectual in that it can really understand social graces and can be aware of the other person and what the other person needs. It can be very considerate. But Libras also care about balance and fairness and justice. And so this full moon could be activating an experience around action, you know, taking action, our ambition, the challenges we need to move through on a relational level to bring more fairness or justice or balance. It could bring about social action. You know, this full moon could bring about social action in some way in your life. The other thing that I want to point out is that the modern ruler of Pisces is Neptune. Now, Neptune is still pretty close to Saturn in a conjunction. Neptune is still in Aries during this solar eclipse. Hey, just giving a energy update. Yeah, talking to some sheep. All right, and so this full moon is also the modern ruler of this full moon is Neptune. Neptune is going to be in Aries at the 1st degree, retrograde, and it's going to be in that talent triangle with Uranus and Pluto. That is interesting. You know, we have the opportunity for change, the opportunity to break through, the opportunity for things to get disrupted for our own higher intelligence, to reorient us on a new path, on a new timeline, in a new potential, or towards the direction that we need to go in for our own growth and for our own rebalancing overall on a soul level. And it's also, we have the opportunity to go deep and transform and evolve, you know, on a soul level. So this is a beautiful, in my opinion, a beautiful total lunar eclipse in Pisces. There's definitely going to be some tension, and the purpose of that tension is to activate the opportunities, activate this flow of energy, activate your gifts and embody them. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for going on a hike with me. I am wishing you the best for this full moon in Pisces, and I will make sure I put out another video about the new moon. The partial solar eclipse, new moon in Virgo. If you have any interest in getting an astrology reading, a natal chart reading, I think one of the things I love about giving natal chart readings is that some people come into this life and they have these patterns and they're looking at their chart. They're not looking at their chart, actually. They're going through their life without astrology. And they're experiencing these patterns, and that these patterns are replaying over and over and over again. And they're kind of like, I feel really stuck, and why isn't this going away? And everything I do doesn't really work. And please, someone help me with these patterns. And you could always approach that from a psychological level and really understand, like, oh, this came from trauma, and this came from childhood. And you could approach it spiritually and be like, oh, look at this. This is a pattern that comes from my past lives. And you know, this is a pattern that's happening with my soul, and it's karmic, and blah, 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 blah. And you can look at your natal chart and you can see your soul. You can see kind of like a blueprint, you know, like this is what your soul came here to work through. You're not broken. You're not stuck. It's a lifelong growth period that you came to work through. Sometimes we come into these lifetimes and there are problems that we have, and there are challenges that we have, And we get through those problems and those challenges and it's over. It's not a lifelong lesson for us to work through. But we also come into these lifetimes to rebalance something and to expand. And so we can create certain challenges or certain patterns that we must work through, that we are fated to work through for our own soul rebalancing, for our own expansion, for our own evolution on a soul level. And some of these people, when I point out to them, hey, this is your lifelong growth period. This is where you're going to be detoxing, healing, expanding, embodying, growing, making change happen, going beyond your comfort zone, doing something that feels difficult or challenging, and it helps you grow and expand and heal and rebalance on a soul level. When I frame it to them like that, and they're looking at their life from this natal chart, it's like I give them an instruction manual. It's like suddenly they have this instruction manual and they're looking at it and they're like, oh, this whole time I felt broken. This whole time I felt invalidated. I go into these spiritual communities and they make me feel stupid because I have issues with abundance, or they make me feel like a bad psychic or spiritual person because I have health issues, or I have this relationship problem that won't go away and I feel like I'm a really bad healer or something. And it's like, no. You have a lifelong growth period. We all do on some level, and this is what it is. And when you can realize that, when you can just take a step back and get some distance from that and look at that and be like, yeah, this is my lifelong growth period, it changes the way you approach it. Suddenly these patterns that you're experiencing, these challenges that you're experiencing, they're not you being stuck anymore. They're not you being broken anymore. They're you having opportunities, a lot of opportunities to heal and grow and embody an elevated version of yourself. Embody a more integrated version of yourself. Embody a more whole version of yourself. Embody a more divine version of yourself. Evolve, right? Evolution is like climbing a spiral. It takes you to a new level, right? And so if you harness some of the challenges that you came here to learn, it's much more empowering, right? So if you are one of those people that are like, what the am I doing? What is happening? I feel so stuck. I feel so lost. I feel so frustrated with these challenges that keep repeating over and over again. Yeah, get a natal chart reading with me. Yeah, let's look at that. Let's look at it from a different perspective. Let's look at it from a soul perspective. Let's look at it from an evolutionary perspective. Let's look at it from a healing perspective. Let's reframe the entire thing and say, this is your map for evolution. And this is your guidelines for the energies and the energy dynamics that you are mastering in this lifetime. All right, if you want more information about that, you can find it on my channel. If you go to my channel, in the information box, there should be some links that take you to my bookings. Okay, it was good chatting with you. Take care, everyone. Say hello to this poo with me. And I will see you when I see you. Bye.